And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Paula Rizzo. Paula, thank you for being my guest today.
Of course.
It is going to be such a fun conversation. Paula and I both have lots of energy, so buckle your seatbelts if you're in the car because it's going to be a wild ride. Paula is an expert at helping authors, entrepreneurs, business owners become media ready. And how do you get on the media? How do you make sure you're right for the media? You know what to say, you know, all the lighting, all of that, and the impact that that can have for your business. That's what she's kind of spent some time doing, and she helps you do it now. And I can't wait to dive into this. So, Paula, again, thanks for being here. Tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Well, my background is in television production. So I was a TV producer for close to 20 years in New
Oh,
York.
okay.
And I, would produce anything from local news to national news, all of the above. And for a long time, I was a health and wellness producer. And I would
Okay.
book a lot of authors.
Wow.
And, I left my full-time job as a TV producer about 7 years ago now. So I went out on my own to do this work as a media trainer and coach to be able to help people. Because when I was a television producer, I couldn't say yes to everyone, right? You have to be very
Okay.
selective of who you put on the air and who is ready. And it always broke my heart because there were so many authors or experts out there who had a really great message or a really great story or their book was awesome, but they were not awesome on
Yeah.
camera. Not yet, right? And so I didn't have the time to coach them as a producer. I just needed to fill the slot and move on. That was it. Like it's a very fast-paced environment. If it's a no, it's a no, moving on.
That's
So
right.
as a producer, I really didn't get to share the stories of some people that could have had great messages and people could have their lives could have been changed by those messages, but no one got to hear them. So now, as a media trainer and coach, I get to help people get ready for that moment so that the TV producer sees them and they say, yep, we're definitely going to bring that person on our show.
Mm. That's so good. Well, we can just dive into it. Very cool story. And I love that because you had the experience of it, and now you're helping people get to that point where I think a lot of people want to be, but they don't understand it, right?
Sure.
And I've talked to a lot of PR type people who are pitching the stories, and talk to my clients. I'm like, your sales pitch is different than your media pitch, number one. So you
Hmm.
gotta figure that thing out. But now you gotta be ready, right? Because they don't want to bring somebody on who stumbles, who doesn't have a clarity of message, and who doesn't, well, dare I say, look the part, right?
Yeah.
Talk to talk to us about some of the things that are going on in the brain of authors, of entrepreneurs who really should be getting on media, but something's stopping them. What have you found kind of stops the people from even taking that step?
There is that idea of, oh, the media will, that's not for me, or they pick all the people that they want. It's not really something that I could do. It just feels like this big pie in the sky thing. And it really isn't. I'm an author myself too. I have 2 books about productivity, listful thinking and listful living. And I do this too. I'm in the media, I pitch myself, I go on TV, I go and do all these things. Um, so I sort of know both sides of this, also as an
Yeah.
expert who's trying to get your information out there. So a lot of times it's just like not knowing that you could be telling the media that you exist,
Yes.
because a lot of times they don't know, and that you could miss your opportunity, which happens a lot as well. Especially if you have a book and
Right.
a producer will be looking and saying, I need an expert in whatever field. And they look, they see you have a book, they're like, great, it's a new book, let's reach out to them. And then that expert says no because they don't feel ready. And that media outlet, it's the worst
Yeah.
because that media outlet has moved on. They will
Yeah.
find someone else who is just as good or better, right?
Yeah.
And that's their go-to person now. And so they will not ask you back again. They just won't. It's
Right.
just not efficient time. So
Yeah.
that's it. You've missed your chance. So I want to make sure that people don't let that happen. And for me, it all comes down to your own content. You already have hopefully written a book, or you have a lot of content, you have a lot of stuff out there. You're a producer. And so to be your own producer, your own content, however you're putting that in the world, that then can become what the media will cover.
Yeah, and I want to dive there because obviously we help people become authors, right? And one of the objections I get early on, and is like, well, I don't want the book to be about me. I'm like, good, because it's not. It's
Mhm.
about your audience. And when you go on the media, on TV or whatever, it's not about you. It's about their audience and what value you're bringing. So you can talk about your experience, your business, whatever it is, in terms of what that producer, what that TV show is interested in for their audience. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And it works for magazines, it works for newspapers or any, and we're talking about all kinds of media. I mean, I know TV obviously at the most because I spent the most time there, but it's the truth. You really are, the media is not there to sell your book. They don't care. They're not your salesperson. It's not about that. It's not about, oh, it's in the book or get the book or whatever. That you can't be salesy. They'll never have you
Right.
back, right? It's a different kind of thing, for authors to go on and talk about their books and to do that kind of media.
Right. Yeah, this is not a book tour, right? This
Right.
is you're the expert on this thing. If let's say you're an estate planning attorney, all right, just and you've written a book on it, Amazon best-selling book, and that audience, that TV, magazine, whatever, they need information for their audience to take it away. And it might come up in the byline that you're an
Yep.
author or something like
Yeah.
that. But I mean, is that kind of how it works?
And that's good enough. A lot of times also authors will say, oh, well, they're not talking to me about anything that's actually in the book. And I say, who cares? They're still going
Yeah.
to identify you as the author of this book. I mean, I talk about things, my first book came out, almost 10 years ago. I still talk about things in that book, yes, but I have moved on. I talk about other things and they still identify me as the author of that book. It's fine. It doesn't matter. So I think a lot of times people also get hooked into this idea that these are the only things I can talk about because this is what's in the book. No, that is your way in, and then you're an expert in this completely.
Well, and I love what you just said, that it's the way in. I've told people for years, your book is a door opener for you.
Mhm.
It's like the VIP fast pass at Disney, right? You buy
Yes.
that pass, you get to the front of the line, and that's really for a business owner. Being an author many times will put you at the front of the line because they're like, oh, I've got 2 or 3 people. Oh, you're an author. Oh, let me check you out. And now, are you media ready? Because that's going to be really the invitation to step into the door and let's have a conversation and see what you're about. Is that
Yeah,
kind of how it works?
absolutely. And the legitimizer there of having the book is so big in the media, even still. If I have two experts as a producer who are, about the same, could talk about the same things, but one has a book and one doesn't. Okay, I'm going with the one that has a book. And hopefully they have some media behind them, right? And
Yeah.
you don't even have to be doing media I mean, you should be doing it when the book comes out, but you should be doing it before. I
Yes.
always tell people if you're trying to just do it, oh, because I have a book launch coming out, now I'm going to start. You don't want to stumble. You want to have done this before. You want to have a proven track record so that when you go back to the media and you say, hey, now I have a book, they'll be like, oh yeah, we love you. Yeah, yeah. What do you want to talk about? That's fine. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I talk to authors a lot, obviously, and
Mhm.
it's like, okay, you don't have to go after Oprah, right? Go
Right.
after your local radio, TV, newspapers, right? Start there, get your chops wet, right? And then work your way up. And is is that good advice or is that just really bad? Because
Baby steps. That is good advice because here's the
okay.
thing. You're not going to get on the Today Show or GMA to start anyway, right? So
Yeah.
don't start at the top. I mean, it happens very rarely that that's your
Yeah.
first media hit, right?
Yeah.
So you do have to start, from the bottom and work your way up, local TV. The nice thing now is that everybody can have a studio in their house, right? And do this from home. So you don't really even have to just pitch your hometown. You can pitch other outlets too,
Right.
smaller local outlets. But the fact is that those producers who are at those smaller stations eventually move and they
Yeah.
take with them their favorite experts. And so
Yeah.
you get to go with them if they really like you and they know that you're the one to talk about that particular topic. They'll say, "Okay, well now I work at NBC in New York City and I loved that expert, so I'm going to book them again." So you want to be friendly with the producers too.
Yeah. And I love that because that's the long tail aspect of what you're talking about is being
Yeah.
on media. It's not a one and done shot. It can be, but that's not where the value is. The value is that long term, you're an expert. And when that producer, something happens in the media, right? And dare I say, you're an estate planning attorney. There's a big plane crash in Oklahoma.
Sure.
That would be a great opportunity for somebody to, after the hoopla, but to come on and say, "Hey, today we're doing a segment on the importance of planning for your families." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
We have today Amazon best-selling author Martha Patterson, who's an
Yep.
expert at it. I mean,
It's
that's how it
perfect.
works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just need to constantly have these conversations and
Hmm.
still be in the media. A lot of times what people will do is they have a book or they have a thing or they have, okay, I'm going to do it for a little while. And then they kind of hang it up and they do nothing. And then they want to write another book or they want to do something else. And they haven't really nurtured
Right.
both themselves, as an expert, and then also the relationships that they started, that they had from before. From my first book to my second book, it was 5 years between the publishing of the first one and the second one.
Okay.
I never stopped doing media. I always would pitch myself. And then, you start to become the known person. I talk about lists and productivity. There's tons of people who do that. But for whatever reason, when people think lists, they think Paula Rizzo, which is cool. And so I have that little corner of the world where then when the second book came out, I was like, hey, this new book is out. Do you want to do it? And they were like, yep. Oh, yeah, right. We know you.
Yeah. So a couple things there is, it's easy to pick up Paula because Paula's attractive. Paula speaks well. Paula knows all this stuff, and you show up great on camera. But I'm not really that way. But isn't that how you help coaches? How you help coach entrepreneurs and authors to go? No, you probably got a lot more than you think. But here's what the media is looking for. Let's talk about how you work with authors, because we've got a lot of clients who are doing second and third books,
Yeah.
but I don't know that they're doing media. Talk about that.
For sure. Yeah. And it is about being ready, right? So that you could sit down if they need you at a drop of a hat, which is what sometimes happens with the media. You don't get very
100%.
much, something happens, they need an expert, they call you, you say yes, off you go, right? You're on and that's it. It's over before you even know what happened. But we want to make sure that you're ready for that moment, that you know what to wear, that you know that you have all your equipment set up, or if you're going in the studio, what is that going to be like? Because it is scary if you've not done that before,
Yeah.
I mean, it's intimidating for sure. I've spent my career in television studios. So for me, it's like, it's just like work. It's not a big deal, but I like to help people prepare for that moment, because that's what I would do with all of my guests to make sure that they weren't overwhelmed. So to be able to also talk about your book in a really succinct way, which doesn't always come naturally. We always think like, oh yeah, I'll be able to, they'll ask me some questions. I'll be able to, can you do it in like, you have 30 seconds, not even, to just to get it out. And the segment itself, like I did a TV segment yesterday, the entire thing was, I think, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And we had, that's not a lot of time to get in all of the tips and all the things that you want to do. So you really need to be succinct. And the way that I teach it is, I call it the accordion method. So there's a short, a medium, and a long answer to any question that you'll be asked. So you can literally pick which one are you going to do if it's a TV segment, which is super short, or you're on a podcast where you have more time to tell the story.
Right. I love that, the accordion method.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that you haven't said, which I assume is part of what you do and how you help them, is to actually pre-plan and think about here are maybe 5 questions that you might get asked, or here are the 5 points you need to make every time. Now let's script that out.
Yeah.
Memorize it, make it you, so that you don't have to go there. Well, yeah, that was really an interesting. No, that's not what they want. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Talking points. Yeah. You need to have your talking points, which is what, a lot of times if you're pitching or whatever, you're going to be sending them. Here's what I can talk about. Here's the details. And then the producer will create questions from those talking points. So the truth of the matter is, it doesn't even matter what the questions are, because you always have the answer. You always know where you want to go. You always know what you want to say. I've had people come to me before and say, oh, the interview was terrible. They didn't ask good questions. And I said, no, you didn't have good answers. It shouldn't matter what they ask you, right? You have your go-to things that you want to get across, but you have to plan for those. You have to know those. You also have to like front load the information, and that it's different than the way that we write, right? When you write out this whole thing, and then maybe you have like a sentence at the end that ties it all together. I want people to think in headlines, right? You need to give it to me right in the beginning. So if you get cut off, or there's not much time, or people zone out, or they switch the channel, they got something out of it. So you want to make sure to just get that out right away, and then you can expand if you have more time.
Yeah, very much so. And going back to the whole, well, they're not talking about my book. It doesn't matter, because it's you, and they can always find you. They can always go back and find the segment and things. But when you're there to serve that producer and that audience, they're going to invite you back. And then tell me, I mean, once you're on one media outlet, is it easier to get on another one, or is it still just starting from scratch because you're a no name? But how does that work? I'm just curious.
Well, you're a legitimate expert, right? You have a clip to be able to say, hey, I've already spoken about this topic on this thing. Like, I wouldn't pitch the exact same thing that you did someone else, because they don't want to do the exact same segment. Everybody wants to have their own
It's
thing.
already been scooped.
Right, yeah, but to be generous,
Yeah.
and as you're saying, like, to be of service, I always say that to my clients, like, do you have to be of service? This is, I've always looked at television as a public service, and so that people can understand and know things and get information about their world. And so for you to come in with that generosity to say, like, this is not about me and my book and selling things. This is about the audience. This is what I can give them. This is how they can change their lives. And, being able to then do one, that's great because then you get the ball rolling. Then you can pitch that other outlet, and it kind of goes from there.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how do you work with authors and entrepreneurs? Is it a 1 month program or an annual? I mean, ballpark. You probably have different things, but what could somebody expect who's out there going, "I always wanted to do that. I'm just scared to death, and I don't have a clue. Oh, this might work." Oh, I mean, give us kind of
It,
a big picture.
it does take some time. So I like to work with people before the books come out. So I like right now, I'm working with authors at least 6 months is like before their books come out. I have to work with them at least 6 months. Sometimes I work with them a year before if they've done no media or if they're trying to do this for the first time. And I work with people for 3 months minimum to start because I like to give you tools and things that you could be doing on your Zoom calls, right? So you're going to be speaking differently. You're going to be having conversations in different ways. This is a communication education in a lot of ways,
Yes.
right? It's because everything that you say is going to be different now that you have this education in media training. You're going to want to get to the point, be more succinct, also work on what you're wearing, what your background looks like, what your lighting is. Like this takes time to tweak and perfect. So
Mhm.
I like to do it over time, over the 3 months, so that you have time to do homework in between and send me the videos, and then we can critique them and we can talk about, okay, well, you answered this well, but maybe let's try to put in this example so that you
Right.
have a lot of different tools in your toolbox of like, okay, if the host wants to know about this kind of thing or the audience is like this is the example that I give so that you really have a lot of movement there. You're able to be sort of nimble when you're doing a lot of different things and to practice, like to have somebody who's going to ask you the questions and be able to run through it with you and say, oh gosh, like I got lost there. I wasn't sure what I was talking about. We script things out and I do, the top 10 questions that you'll probably be asked about your book so that at least you have those, down and have practiced because a lot of times people think they'll be fine and have never practiced it, has never said the words out loud. And then you realize, oh, the word especially is hard to say. I don't want lists is such a hard word to say my whole book, but lists, it's the worst. So it's like, how can I get around not saying that too many times where I stumble on it?
That's great. I love that. Practicing out loud. I used to be a speech coach for our homeschooling group, and I would tell them, yeah, you can read it all day long, but when you start speaking it, it's totally different. And honestly, I think the brain works differently from saying it to my head to saying it out loud. There are different parts because it's totally different. The other thing that this really helps with, I think, and I love your feedback, is when you get prepared to go, when you get media ready,
Mhm.
and you've walked through Paula's program, you have greater confidence, and it's going to help you in your sales presentations because you have all of these answers ready to go, and pretty soon it just becomes you and it just flows. Is that a good benefit?
Definitely. And you also have a lot of data at your fingertips. What happens is like the media loves data, like they love it. So anytime you can throw out a stat or say this happened or whatever. So what I do with my clients is I make them go through their book and say, okay, what are some like really cool stats if you have them, if that's the kind of book you have, like for me, you're 33% more likely to do something if you write it down. There have been studies done. So I throw that fact out there, for here and there, and it always gets quoted. People just love it, right? And so it's a thing. And so that's great because then you sort of have all this new information that's impressive that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have pulled out of the book, right? You wouldn't have thought like, oh, I should say that in this sales conversation, or I should say this when I'm doing a speech. That's very impactful.
Yeah, because so many times what we write in our books and what we do all day, every day is so common to us.
Oh, definitely.
And I tell my clients all the time, I say, you, Paula, and this applies to you, you have forgotten more about media readiness than most of us will ever know,
It's true. It's
right?
true. It's like beware the curse of knowledge, right?
100%. And that's why we need people like you to help us get prepared to say, okay, this is not Mount Everest. This is really just a short hurdle that I've just never run on before. I don't know how to
Totally.
get up, over, around, or whatever. My wife and I have been watching, I don't know why, reruns of American Ninja Warrior.
Oh,
And there are some major barriers there, right? That
oh
one wall
yeah.
that you have to run. It's like, okay, you see some people conquering it and others don't. It's like, well, it's practice and it's perfect practice makes perfect, right? And
Yes,
that's why
it's
Paula is going to help you craft and think and guide you through this process to get you media ready. But it's also going to help you become webinar ready and podcast ready and client
definitely.
ready and referral ready and everything ready. Speaking at your local Rotary clubs, you're going to have the same kind of pitch and feel, and your confidence will grow so much. Not to mention the credibility on your website when you have these logos from these magazines and TV stations. And go to Paula's website, and she'll tell you where to go and just scroll down. I mean, the girl's got all kinds of credentials from these major platforms, and you're like, well, how do I get that? Well, you get that by hiring Paula, and she can teach you how to. So Paula, you and I can be here for a long time.
I
I think
know. I know. I mean, look, and this is why I still pitch and do media myself, because I want to know and remember, because you're right. Like, I have forgotten a lot of the things that becomes part of, like, what you know.
yeah.
But I sometimes am surprised by some of the interviews that I do, right? The questions that is like, oh, I didn't expect that question.
Mhm.
Okay, here's how you handle that, right? So some of those things that really people do get terrified about, that
Right.
what if I don't know the answer? What if they catch me off guard? Like, I'm doing it too. So that when it happens, I'm like, okay, here's how I tried to handle it. Like, here's so that we can make sure if this happens to you, how to go about doing that. Cause it can be scary, but a lot of it is improv,
Yeah.
honestly. It's just sort of like going with the flow, listening. If they tell a joke, like, throw it back. It doesn't always work out, because sometimes you're a little bit scared in the beginning, but then
Yeah.
after that, it can be really a fun experience.
And I relate it and to podcasting. When I
Yeah.
first started podcasting, I was a little nervous and scared and things. And I mean, I think this is about my 340th or 50th episode of hosting. It's like
Wow.
I just show up and talk, and we
Yeah,
just
I
have a
got
great
it.
time. And because of that experience, I can be genuine and authentic and listen. And I think probably if you go into this and work with Paula, this is my counsel. And tell me if I'm wrong. Just figure out your first 5 or 6 are going to be terrible, but you're not going after 5 or 6. You're going after 30 or 40 or 50 over the next decade.
Right.
Okay. And as you do that, your confidence gets better. You're going to just show up, and you're going to become um, the go-to person for the media,
Yeah.
which allows you to influence their audience. So you'll be the go-to person for their audience over time. It's not a one and done thing. That's why it's so important to become, as Paula says, media ready. It's a whole lot more than saying, yep, I'll show up.
Yeah.
No, you got to show up professionally. Fair?
And I want you to, and authors to work it out with me first. Let me work out the bad stuff, right? The kinks.
Yes.
Send me those videos. Let's not have that be something that happens to you on the air. You'll be well past that. So you won't have those flubs. I mean, you might, but it won't be as bad because you would have already practiced. And having your own show, like you're saying, a podcast or a live stream show or whatever is great because it's good practice too.
Right. Yeah. You become more affluent. No, that's the wrong word. More something, more lists. I had to throw that in there. More comfortable just talking with people. And I love you've become very adept at thinking on your feet.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do. And the reality is we are all experts at what we do. And when the media brings you on as the expert around this, they're talking to you about what you do.
Totally.
And when you are prepared and media ready, you're going to be a rock star, and it's going to help every aspect of your business, your confidence, your personal life. It will take your business to new levels. And I love this because not a lot of people do this. When you think about authors and business owners and entrepreneurs, they're out doing nothing wrong with it, right? Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, and they're doing everything everybody else does. Not that you shouldn't do that, but how about taking this track down media? Because I won't say it's a wide open field because there's still competition, but when you become media ready and you work with Paula, who's been doing it for like a couple decades, there's a pathway laid out for you that you'll probably get a higher ROI, and it'll be more fun than looking at dashboards with ROI on
Yeah,
ads.
that's true. Hopefully.
So did I overstep my grounds there?
Yeah, I think it's good. I agree. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So where does somebody go? They're sitting here. They're going, okay, I thought about this. I don't know what to do. I'm terrible at speaking. I look terrible, whatever. How do they just find out more about you, your programs, working with you, all of that?
Okay, so I have a freebie that I think is very helpful because it's something that I have taken out of my one-on-one trainings.
Mhm.
It's 10 questions that are, likely to be asked of authors in the media. It's the 10 questions I go through with all of my one-on-one clients. So if you go to paularizzo.com/10Q, you can
Okay.
get that there, and it walks you through what are those questions. I mean, the first question, I'll just tell you what it is what's your book about, which is the worst question ever because everyone's like, oh gosh, I don't know, I'm not sure, who knows. It's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
So it walks you through those, and then a bit about the accordion method and how I teach that. And of course, I have a course, Media Ready Author, and then I work with people one-on-one. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn and all over the place.
I love that. Okay. paularizzo.com/10Q. I'm going to make sure that's in the show notes
Cool.
and obviously your website and LinkedIn profile. So, because I want you to get connected with Paula. She's a rare breed because she's done it for years. She knows both sides of the camera per se. She knows what producers are looking for. She can prepare you to be media ready to take your expertise out to the world, build your credibility, build your confidence, and actually grow your business in a way that's very different and unique. And it becomes that snowball effect because once you're there and those producers like you and they know you, they're coming back.
Yeah,
And you
it's
get three
gold.
or four or five of six of those on a semi-regular basis, you're a media superstar.
Yeah.
And in your audience, this is the cool thing. You put those, go to Paula's website and look at the media that she has listed there. It immediately says, this is a credible person I need to be working with. And that's what Paula can help you garner and gather for your business. So reach out to Paula, and I'm going to have everything in the show notes, paularizzo.com, and make sure you then go /10Q for those 10 questions you're likely to be asked. Paula, this is so much fun.
It
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
Thanks for
Thank you for having me. What a fun combo.
well, you are welcome. Thanks for doing what you do, and I'm sure we'll do some more fun things together down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. Tune in again next week for another phenomenal interview. Until then, take care. God bless.